Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well. It is a little chilly here, overcast, and the Weather Bureau predicted rain. I can smell the rain, but have not seen a drop yet. I had a nice warm bath, got into my grey pants with a back support and a long t-shirt and my favorite jersey, opened the curtains, and am as cozy and comfortable as can be. However, I'm not as comfortable about the topic I am about to discuss with you, but it needs to be done now more urgently than ever before. Let's take on an everyday scenario, something most of us have gone through. Let's say you need a good second-hand car, something which still looks okay, but more importantly, it needs to transport you safely from point A to Z. There are 3 dealerships in your town. The first one belongs to Long John, a tall, lanky guy who was a mechanic until he got a back injury and couldn't work on cars anymore. He's a quiet guy with a wife and 5 children. And then there is Lucky Al, a well-built, attractive guy full of charm, a deacon at his church, on the parents' committee at the local primary school. He's married with 1 daughter. The dealership is his second or third business. One he sold out of the blue, and the other one he closed just before it went bankrupt. He has lots of friends, and there are rumors of a couple of affairs, past and present. And then there is Joe, who inherited his dealership from his father. The business originally only sold tractors, trucks, and plows, but he bought the lot next door and expanded the business. He has a wife and 3 sons, and his only vice that anyone is aware of is having 1 beer after football on Saturday. Now, who would you buy a vehicle from? I don't know, but I know who I will not buy one from. Mr. L, the attractive charmer. It sounds far too risky for me. Okay, so if you won't buy a vehicle from Lucky L because you are afraid he may charm you into buying trouble, then why in God's name do people keep voting for politicians who are much, much worse? Here in South Africa, we had Jacob Zuma, who during his presidency had been charged with everything from rape to collusion to fraud. In the United States, you have an uncle who, God bless his soul, is way past his sell-by date and who really needs loving care and an ice cream on his front porch every afternoon. An uncle who can't string a sentence together, yet is expected to run a superpower. Yes, I can carry on, and I'm almost convinced that every country has or had someone entirely unsuitable at the helm at some point. Yet the worst is that no matter who it is or which country we are talking about, they were voted into position by a majority of people. Okay, not necessarily the majority, but at least received the biggest percentage of the votes. And then I ask you, how and why? Why? It makes as much sense as buying a second-hand car from a dodgy businessman with a bad reputation, just because he's got a nice smile or something like that. Yet the L's, the Jacobs, the Joes always have supporters and fans, as unbelievable and as crazy as it may look and sound to us. When you look at these, what I would call unlikely heroes, you will also find that their supporters are not just your average Joe and Susie who just happen to like Joe or Al or Jacob. No, their fans are 99% sycophants from the really crazy and nasty to the aggressive to the just deaf, dumb, and blind. In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a sycophant is described as one who clings to a person of wealth, power, or influence and is useless to society. Synonyms are fawner, flunky, bootlicker, lickspittle, brown-noser, and suck-up. Well, I guess that says it all. And if you don't know what a sycophant is after this short description, then I'm sorry I can't help you. But what I am going to try and do is tell you what type of personality is more prone to become a sycophant. And I'm doing this because it will be important to the rest of my story. We all know or have known or come across a sycophant. They are the ones who stuck up to the boss, the teacher's pet, or the blindly loyal. And unfortunately, when they are no longer in school or some kind of university or teaching facility, they go into places like the White House, the Kremlin, Downing Street, and dare I say, Buckingham Palace and Clarence House are full of them. Now, sycophantic behavior is indeed a personality disorder in the same sense as narcissism. It is a personality disorder which can pose as much risk, disorder, danger as narcissistic behavior. And I'm going to explain to you in a minute how narcissism and sycophantic behavior fit together like a hand in a glove. But first, a bit more about the sycophant. They are people pleasers who would do anything to get along, fit in, and be viewed favorably by someone in authority. Political correctness, groupthink, and conformity is typical of this group, and they have a real fear of being shouted down or criticized, and therefore seldom, if ever, raise a critical opinion. However, a sycophant will be quick to criticize or attack those who dare question or dare to undermine his or her revered leader. Unfortunately, social media has made life so much easier for sycophants, as it is a lot easier for the sycophant to be a keyboard warrior without having to even confront anyone face to face. Now, let's talk about why the narcissist and the sycophant actually fit together like a hand in a glove, like butter on bread. We know that a narcissist needs endless, constant approval from others. We know that a narcissist cannot tolerate the slightest bit of criticism. If they get attached to an idea, opinion, or theory, a narcissist can become very, very hostile to anyone who has an opinion that does not support that view, because they actually see their view as an extension of themselves. So, narcissists tend to surround themselves with sycophants, particularly in organizations with a hierarchy and hierarchy structure. Places like the military, police, big corporations, large charities, political parties, trade unions, the church, cults, and ta-da! The monarchy. Sycophants are attracted to those with perceived power and authority because they themselves often lack self-confidence and self belief. Now, what no one wants to talk about is how dangerous sycophants can be in politics, certain institutions, how they can weaken corporate performance, and can even lead to military disasters if leaders, be the generals, prime ministers, or royalty, only surround themselves with sycophantic yes men, they will only get the advice and answers that reflect their established and possibly wrong views. And this, my dear friends, is called the sycophant effect. Personal moral cowardice and the sacrifice of individual integrity paves the way for narcissistic leaders to flourish. A healthy, prosperous society needs people of courage and individuality that are willing to offer a different view. Yes, just like in the fairy tale of the king's new clothes, society needs that little boy in the crowd to shout out, "The king is naked!" Now, why am I telling you all of this? Well, because it is necessary for us, myself included, to understand or to be reminded of the dangers of both ends of these personality disorders. Everyone who's anyone talks about narcissism and narcissistic behavior, but no one talks about sycophantic behavior and the dangers it poses. But now we are all up to speed again, and I can go pack the 5 kilogram psychology handbook away, and I can safely announce, Houston, we have a problem. Not that Houston can do anything about this particular problem. Now, everywhere I look, there is this quiet, undercover war raging, and I fear that it may explode in the most unexpected way. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Harry's visit to England next month. Yes, it is for Invictus, and under normal circumstances, it would have been of slight but almost forgettable interest. But with 2 senior members of the royal family undergoing cancer treatment, it is taking on a whole different meaning. Meghan is obviously trying to create a usual media frenzy with her will she, won't she crap. But this time it appears that most of us and mainstream media are bored with it and her will she, won't she game. We heard it all before, and for what? Something like 6 years? Yes, I think we get it now. But it is not only because of that, but because the alleged meeting between Charles, William, and Harry may take place in May. And from what I hear, there is a lot of drama surrounding this particular meeting because William has certain demands and requests, things he wants assurance of before he attends the meeting. Harry has demands and prerequisites, and then there is the king, whom I hear is equally negative and listless and unprepared for the meeting. But I am told that everyone, from Parliament to the Privy Council, is insisting that such a meeting take place. Slowly but surely it is sinking in that the Harry and Meghan saga is like a festering, pus-filled boil which needs to be lanced to heal. And if it can't heal, then the limb has to be severed, cut off, before it turns into gangrene and infects the rest of the body. The king waited too long, and from what I hear, it is the first time in about 54 years that Charles is indeed being pushed to do something against his will. You see, Charles had always been the narcissistic leader who surrounded himself with sycophants. The motto had always been, what Charles wants, Charles gets. But the time has now come where the damage done by a narcissistic prince and his sycophantic staff and friends has to be dealt with. Because, like I said years before the Queen passed, it is unfortunate that Charles himself have far too many skeletons in his cupboard. However, it is also a fact that Charles's reign will be much shorter than that of his mother, and would have been shorter even if he did not get cancer. And therefore, one can almost say that it is too late to change the king or his deeds as prince and king, but instead to just persevere through it all until William takes to the throne, to see Charles merely as an interim king. And yes, we could have done that if it wasn't for one single thing. So what is that one thing which necessitates us pushing and pushing for justice? Well, because this is going to be a long, long video, I'm going to take a sip of coffee and give you a couple of seconds to stretch or grab some popcorn. Okay, now my mouth is no longer so dry. The one thing which is responsible for the need for pressure on the palace and the king is indeed the Harkle debacle. I know for a fact that members of the House of Lords, politicians, lawyers who are part of the king's privy council, and even some of his sycophantic friends had urged the king to deal with the Harkle debacle, and everyone told him that it would be for his own good and the good of his reign to do so. Even his other son, the next king, had asked Charles to be more decisive with regards to Harry and Meghan. Certain requests were made and certain demands were made, questions asked, etc. But the king had instead chosen to ignore it, even hide from facing it head on. Remember, I even remarked a couple of times that it appeared as if Charles was running from Harry. Remember last year in May when Harry was in London and Charles took off for Transylvania? Yes, one of a number of similar incidents always covered by the sycophants coming at you with, oh, it was pre-scheduled. The king is on a tight schedule. The king's schedule is set up for him by his courtiers. Blah, blah, blah. And all of it BS. The king may be a constitutional monarch, but he is boss, the boss of his own household and office. Had he wanted to see his son, he could have left an hour, 2 hours, or even a day later. Who was going to force him to leave when he did? No one. He was not keeping a world leader waiting. He was going on holiday. It has actually become so obvious that he was being cowardly and ignoring the situation rather than facing it head on that we as the public on the sidelines are not the only ones talking about it. Many advisors and friends had indeed advised them to face the Harkle-related issues head on. And now it has reached a point where, although he had all these sycophants telling him, oh, let's play the long game, it's all okay, master, okay, all these courtiers, okay, but it has reached a point where he can no longer ignore the questions of the public unless he wants to completely ruin his reign. With so many books coming out with super injunctions and NDAs not lasting forever, the king and others are under a constant, stressful threat that the bubble can burst any moment and that the truth will come spilling out. And of all the Harkle issues, the potentially most damaging one would be the truth about the children, who are indeed sixth and seventh in the line of succession. And the reason why it would be so damaging would be because the king and his group of sycophantic courtiers and so-called advisers, or then yes men, cannot say that they are not aware of the questions the public have about the birth of those two children. They are. I myself have written to Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, and so has many of you. Our concerns and our questions have been discussed in mainstream media ad nauseum, even made fun of in the beginning, particularly by the little plastic sycophant amid scabies. We have been ridiculed by the likes of Misan Harriman, Boozy, and even Harry himself. But what none of them have done was even do so much as provide us with a proper, decent signed birth certificate with both parents properly named. Proper proof of life certificates signed by two witnesses, a doctor and a midwife, or a doctor and a senior nurse. So, where is it? Why is Archie's christening record sealed? The excuse is that they do not want to expose his godparents. Really? They had let slip ages ago who the godparents were. Then there were the big bumps, small bumps, swinging bumps, no bumps, knee together squats, and bumps so high no mother would be able to breathe. A 5-month bump the size of the belly of an elephant carrying twins or triplets. And let's not forget that phone call we made to the cottage hospital the day after Lily was supposedly born, and no one from the receptionist to a doctor knowing who the hell we were talking about. And the lies and gaslighting are still continuing. Archie and Lily were supposedly in England for the Platinum Jubilee, but Harry and Meghan went to Buckingham Palace alone while everyone else's children were there. Then Harry and Meghan go to Clarence House, arrive and leave alone. And then the dubious birthday party with the only guests allegedly being Misan Harriman, his wife and children, photographed on a garden set, which I have a feeling never made it to Britain. And then no one spots a child of any description at the Farnborough airport they leave from, nor at the private airport in the United States they arrive at. Yes, they unload toys and swings and stuff, but no children. The children are allegedly attending nursery school, but not one mama has actually said something like, oh, Archie is such a well-mannered child. No, not at all. Radio silence from everyone. Now, if I did not have a run-in with someone really, honestly truthful, who assured me that she saw and touched Archie when he was supposedly around 5 days old, and then saw him periodically until he was about 2.5, then I would have joined the group who believe that Archie does not exist at all. But no, I do believe that Archie exists because I 100% believe what this person told me about Archie. And I believe her because of who she is and the risk she took speaking to me at all. But it does not matter how many anomalies, how many issues, how many Photoshop pictures we mention, how many questions we have. And yes, there are some ridiculous theories, but most of us have legitimate questions, straightforward, common sense questions, questions which the palace are refusing to answer, and by them stubbornly refusing to answer simple questions, they themselves are contributing to our doubts, and legally, constitutionally, for as long as there are doubts about the children's origins or parentage, they cannot, should not be in the line of succession. As servants of their country, public servants paid for by the state, it is not good enough that, say, the king is satisfied with the explanations of the births. No, his country, his people, his subjects have to be satisfied. But when the king had been warned of this, he treated it with disdain, with a superior attitude, literally shrugging it off. Literally shrugging off the people and their questions. The king and the king alone allowed for those two children to receive titles. The king and the king alone allowed for those two children to be in the line of succession. Yes, had it been a normal scenario, these two children would automatically have been sixth and seventh in line to the throne. But without the proper signed proof of birth and christening certificates, the king should have communicated to Harry and Meghan that the children will not be included in the line of succession unless or until they are provided with the proper documentation. The king is 100% within his power and right to have done that, but he didn't, did he? Now, although royal titles are hereditary, it is not automatic or forced on anyone. At the time of a royal birth, the title of a grandchild of a monarch is offered to him or her by the monarch, and the parents are free to accept or not. Again, use Peter and Sarah as examples. So, although grandchildren of a monarch are eligible to become prince and princess, it still has to be offered to them and up to them, or at least their parents, to accept or not. So if there are issues surrounding the birth of these children, then the king should have stopped and prevented these two children from getting titles, well within his right. But he did not. Even more frustrating for us and scary for the royal family is the fact that no one lives in a bubble. These children, whenever or whoever they were born from, were likely not born in the stables in Windsor. No, they were born at a hospital or private clinic with a doctor, nurse, likely a midwife. So if there was a surrogate, then she was obviously in the room with the medical personnel. So that already makes 3, 4, 5 people who actually know the truth. The real birth certificates are somewhere, as is christening records, medical records, and that will pose a risk, a danger to the royal family and the king's reign. King or not, you cannot control every single person who may happen to come across the truth. Phew, let's take a coffee break. I don't have much left, so if you need a bathroom break, please pause the video, come back, and just restart. Okay, guys, I had my coffee. I hope you did too. Welcome back. The idea of surrogacy did not originally come from the public, although we may think so. It came from the fact that a family member or friend of Meghan's made it known that not only did Meghan froze some of her eggs after her divorce from Trevor, and then it was also said that she collected her eggs from wherever it was stored shortly before the wedding. So the seeds were planted before a pregnancy was even announced. Then, when Lily's imminent birth was announced, I was told that unfortunately, due to the fact that the first IVF procedure failed, all Meghan's viable eggs were used in the process to have Archie. So when it came to Lily, they had to use donor eggs. And then we get to see a child with straight red hair, and then one with fine, straight blonde hair. So the fact that both Harry and Meghan have curly hair makes the story of the donor eggs even more plausible. The other issue, and the last one I'm going to talk about today, is Lilibet's citizenship. We are told that Archie and Lily both have dual citizenship, but do they? We know Archie has British citizenship, but does he have American citizenship? But more importantly, we know Lily has American citizenship, but does she have British citizenship? That is a direct question I personally have asked of the palace, a question answerable with a simple yes or no. But guess what? They prefer not to answer that simple question either. I mean, what could be easier, yes or no? I had been in an argument about an American citizen being gifted a British royal title for a while now, and I'm being told that the law prohibiting it had never been finalized. But as far as I'm concerned, it is ridiculous for an American citizen to use a British title in America. In the first place, the title is not legally recognized, no matter what anyone says. So why bother using it? It just sounds pretentious and indeed ridiculous. More serious than that, though. If Lily is not a British citizen, then she does not belong in the line of succession. Now, I can tell you a secret. A fairly well-known journalist had attempted to find out if Lily is a British citizen, and he tried Mountbatten Windsor and Sussex and have to date not been able to find a British citizen named Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor or Lilibet Diana Sussex, although a whole different kettle of fish and a lot more difficult to do. He also could not find a passport application for Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor or Lilibet Diana Sussex either. But as that is treated with a lot more confidentiality, it's a lot harder. So in the meantime, maybe the palace can explain to us why we can't find a citizenship application or birth record for the little girl in England. We are now reaching a point where pride and narcissism and the sycophants who help cover all of this up is going to see it blow up in their faces and cause irreparable damage to the monarchy and the king's reign. The people are nervous. The king is allegedly ill. Catherine has a long road ahead of her, and George is still very young. So at the moment, William is the only person standing between Harry and a regency. So the king better face facts, put his pride in his pocket and sort out this mess. Get rid of his bunch of yes-men and bootlickers and get a strong, righteous bunch to keep him in check and help sort out this mess. Otherwise, I'm afraid there are hard times ahead. Personally, I can't wait for May, and hopefully the meeting will happen. So we'll see what the outcome can or will be. I know it is said that Meghan will not set foot in the United Kingdom again, but will she allow Harry to go do his Invictus thing alone? And will she allow Harry free rein in this meeting? Or would she want to be part of it? Or at least whisper a few things in Harry's ear before he attends the meeting? Now, I don't know, but I have a feeling we'll soon find out. Okay, my dear friends, I do have ears on the ground, and as soon as I know more, obviously I'm going to share it with you. But for now, the ones who are in contact with me are not very positive about any kind of positive outcome. Let's just put it that way. So, yeah, I think let's end it right here. Okay, guys and girls, this has been a long one. I will follow it up with some shorter videos, I promise. So, until we meet again on the next one, please take good care of yourselves. Bye.